There is an old story about a man who came home late one night and found an owl sitting on his fence post. It did not fly away. It just turned its head and looked at him, slow and steady, the way a person looks at you when they have something to say and they are waiting to see if you are ready to hear it. The man went inside. He did not sleep much, and in the morning, before the sun was full up, word came to him that someone he loved had passed in the night. Now, you can call that a coincidence if you want to. A lot of people would. But the old ones would not have called it that. The old ones would have said the owl came first because the owl always comes first, and they would have told you, in a low voice, that the animals have been trying to talk to us the whole time. We are just the ones who forgot how to listen. So, tonight, pull your chair a little closer to the fire. Let me tell you what the elders believed about the creatures that cross our path. Not to frighten you. That is not what this is. By the time we are done, I think you will understand that these old teachings were never really about fear at all. They were about paying attention. And that, my friend, is a medicine most of us have let go cold. Let me start with something the elders understood that we have mostly forgotten. They watched. They watched the world the way you and I watch a screen, only closer and with more respect. A man could tell you which way the weather was turning by the way the swallows flew. A woman could tell you a hard winter was coming by how thick the coats came in on the horses. They read the land like a letter written to them personally, because that is exactly how they saw it. Nothing out there was random. Nothing was just scenery. Every living thing was part of one big family, and when a member of that family stepped out of its ordinary way to come and meet you, that meant something. It was worth stopping for. That is the first thing to hold on to. An animal doing what it always does is just an animal. A crow flying over is a crow flying over. But an animal that breaks its own pattern to look at you, to wait for you, to cross your path when it had no reason to, that is the one the elders paid attention to. That is the one they called a messenger. And of all the messengers, none was spoken of more carefully than the owl. You have to understand something about the owl, and it is important, so let me say it plainly. What the owl means is not the same for every nation. This is where a lot of people get it wrong. Among the Navajo and the Apache, the owl was taken very seriously indeed, and often its call in the night was understood as a warning that death was near, that a spirit was moving through. In those teachings, you did not welcome that sound. You grew quiet, and you paid your respects, and you were careful. But travel to other peoples. The Lakota, the Cherokee, the Hopi, and the owl wears a different face. To some, it was the spirit of one who had already passed, coming back to watch over the family. To some, it was a guardian, a keeper of the night, a holder of knowledge that only comes out after dark. Sane bird. Many meanings. And the elders knew that, and they never pretended one nation's story could speak for all of them. So when I tell you the owl was a messenger, I am not telling you the owl means you are going to die. I want to be clear about that, because fear spreads fast and it spreads ugly, and that was never the point. What I am telling you is that the owl was the bird the old ones would not ignore. When it came close, when it called your name in that low and patient way, they believed it was asking you to wake up, to look at your life, to remember that your time here is a gift and not a promise, and to go and mend whatever needed mending while you still could. There is a reason the owl carried that weight. Think about how it lives. It sees in the dark, where we are blind. It flies without a sound, so you never hear it coming. It turns its head to look straight back over its own shoulder, at the past, at the thing behind you. The elders looked at all of that and they said, here is a creature that sees what we cannot see and knows what we would rather not know. Of course it became the one who carries the hard news. Who else would you send? I knew an old woman once who kept a small pouch of tobacco by her door for exactly this reason. She said if the owl ever came and called, she would step outside and set a pinch of that tobacco on the ground, and she would say, "Thank you, I hear you, I understand." And then she would go back in and she would call her children on the telephone, every one of them, just to hear their voices. She was not afraid of that bird. She had made her peace with it a long time ago. She said the owl was not her enemy. The owl was the one honest friend who would always tell her the truth, even when the truth was hard. Most of us do not have a friend like that. She was grateful for hers, feathers and all. Now let me turn to a different messenger, one that comes in daylight and carries a different kind of news. The crow. And his big cousin, the raven. If the owl is the keeper of the night, the crow is the keeper of change. The elders watched the crow, and they saw a clever thing, a thing that remembers faces, that solves problems, that talks in a language of its own, and clearly means every word of it. Among many peoples, the crow and the raven were creatures of transformation. There are stories, beautiful old stories from the far northwest, that say it was the raven who brought the sun and the moon and the stars into the sky, who stole the light out of a box where it was being hidden and let it loose for all of us. Think about that. The one people call a nuisance, a thief, a bad sign. To those old storytellers, he was the reason there is any light at all. So when a crow crossed the elders' path and made a point of it, cawing at them, following along a fence line, they did not think death the way they might with the owl. They thought change. Something in your life is about to turn over. A door is about to open, or an old one is about to close for good. The crow was telling you, get ready, it is coming whether you are ready or not, so you had best wake up and pay attention. And there is that word again. Attention. You are going to notice it keeps coming back tonight, because it is the whole thing. It is the seed the whole harvest grows from. The elders would also tell you that the crow saw more than we do. It sits up high. It has the long view. When you are down in the middle of your troubles, so close to them you cannot see past them, the crow is up above it all, watching the whole shape of your life at once. So some of the old people, when they saw a crow settle near and fix them with that black and knowing eye, they would take a breath and they would ask themselves an honest question. What am I too close to right now to see clearly? What would I understand if I could lift up and look down on my own life the way that bird is looking down on me? That is not superstition. That is wisdom wearing feathers. Then there is the coyote. And the coyote, well, the coyote is a whole different kind of teacher. In more stories than I could tell you in a week, the coyote is the trickster. He is clever, and he is greedy, and he is always scheming, and his schemes almost always blow up in his face. He is the one who reaches for too much and loses what he had. The elders did not tell coyote stories to praise him. They told them to laugh at him, and then to look sideways at themselves, because every one of us has a little coyote in us. That part that cuts corners. That part that wants the easy way, the shortcut, the thing we did not earn. When the coyote crossed your path, the old ones would say, "Careful now. Look at where you are being greedy. Look at where you are trying to be too clever for your own good. Look at the lie you are telling yourself." The coyote comes to hold up a mirror, and the face in that mirror is your own, and it is usually caught doing something a little foolish. But here is the part people miss about the coyote, and it is the tender part. He is a trickster, yes, but through all his foolishness, he ends up teaching the lesson anyway. He falls in the hole so you learn to watch your step. He gets burned so you learn to respect the fire. The elders knew that some lessons cannot be handed to you gently. Some lessons you only learn by watching a fool go first. So the coyote goes first. He takes the fall for all of us over and over in story after story, and we get to learn the easy way what he had to learn the hard way. There is a strange kind of love in that, if you sit with it long enough. Now let me slow us down and bring in a softer visitor, the deer. After the owl and the crow and the tricky old coyote, the deer feels like a hand laid gently on your shoulder. The elders saw in the deer everything that is quiet and kind and unguarded: gentleness, innocence, a watchful, tender awareness of everything around it. The deer does not fight. The deer does not scheme. The deer simply stays soft in a hard world and stays alert, and that is its whole medicine. They used to say that when a deer stops and lifts its head and looks at you, really looks at you, without bolting the way its fear would tell it to, you are being asked a question. The question is, can you be gentle right now? Can you drop your guard just for a moment? Can you stop being so hard, so busy, so armored up against everything, and just be soft and present the way this creature is being soft and present with you? A lot of us have forgotten how. We have spent so many years being tough because we had to be that we do not remember how to set it down. The deer comes to remind us that gentleness is not weakness. It is its own kind of strength, and the world is thin without it. Let me tell you about a man I knew, a hard man, the kind who had buried a lot of feeling deep down where it could not trouble him. He lost his wife one winter, and he did not weep, not once, not at the burial, not after. He just went harder and quieter, the way some men do. Then, one gray morning that spring, he was out walking the fence line, and a doe stepped out of the trees and stood in the path in front of him. She did not run. She just stood there and looked at him, and he looked back, and he told me later that he did not know how long they stood like that. And something in him that had been frozen all winter finally cracked open, right there on that muddy path, and he sat down in the wet grass, and he cried like he had not cried since he was a boy. He said it was as if she had come to give him permission to be soft, to grieve, to be human again. When he stood back up, she was already gone. He never forgot it. Neither did I. There are older teachings still that took the deer even further, that spoke of a woman who could take the shape of a deer, who walked between the world of the people and the world of the wild ones, tender and dangerous both. But the heart of it is always the same. The deer is the part of us we guard the most and need the most. When it comes to you, it is asking you to lay your armor down, if only for the length of one held breath. And then there are the high ones, the hawk and the eagle. If the crow has the long view, the eagle has the highest view of all. Among many peoples, the eagle was the most honored bird in the sky, the one that flew closest to the Creator, the one whose feathers were sacred and were earned, never taken lightly. When an eagle or a hawk appeared, circling slow and high over your day, the elders did not read a warning in it. They read a blessing. They said your prayers are being carried up. They said, lift your eyes. You have been looking down at your feet too long. Remember that there is something bigger than this problem you are chewing on. Remember that you are part of a story so large you cannot see the edges of it. The hawk comes to pull your chin up off your chest. It comes to remind you to hope. Now there is one more thing the elders read, and it is the one almost nobody talks about, because it is not a creature at all. It is the silence. The old ones did not only listen for the animals that came, they listened just as hard for the animals that suddenly went. You know the feeling, even if you have never had a name for it. You are out in the woods or the field, and the birds are singing and the insects are humming, the whole world busy with its little noises, and then, all at once, it stops. Every bird goes quiet at the same moment. The air holds still. The elders taught their children to snap awake the instant that happened, because when the small creatures all fall silent together, something has entered the country that they are all afraid of. It might be a storm rolling in that you cannot see yet. It might be a predator moving low through the brush. It might be something the old ones would only speak of after dark. But the message was the same. When the world goes quiet all at once, do not relax. Wake up. The animals are telling you something is here, and they are telling you the only way they can, by holding their breath. Learn to feel that silence, they said, and it will save your life one day. So it is not only the visit that carries the message. Sometimes the loudest thing a creature can say to you is nothing at all. So now you have met them. The owl who tells the hard truth, the crow who announces the change, the coyote who holds up the mirror, the deer who asks for your gentleness, the eagle who lifts your eyes, and the great silence that falls when the whole wild family holds its breath. And you might be sitting there thinking, all right, but how do I know when it is real? How do I know when it is a message and when it is just an animal being an animal? The elders had an answer for that, and it is simpler than you would expect. They said, you will know because it will break the pattern. The owl that sits and will not leave. The deer that holds your eyes instead of running. The crow that follows you the length of the road. When a wild thing sets aside its own nature, its caution, its fear of you, to come and be near you and make sure you have seen it, that is when you lean in. That is when you get quiet. That is when you ask what it came to say. And what did the old ones do when a messenger came? Not much, and that is the beauty of it. They did not run around in a panic. They did not go looking for someone to blame. They gave the creature its respect. Some would set down a little tobacco, the way that old woman did, as a way of saying, thank you, I hear you. Some would just go still and let the feelings settle and turn it over in their heart for a day or two. And nearly all of them would do one simple thing. They would look honestly at their own life. They would ask, what have I been ignoring? Who have I not spoken to in too long? What have I been putting off as though I had all the time in the world? The messenger did not bring the answer. The messenger only asked the question. You were always the one who had to answer it. That is why I told you at the start that none of this is really about fear. Fear looks at an owl and sees only death. But the elders looked at that same owl and saw an invitation. Wake up. Pay attention. Love the people around you out loud today while they can still hear you. Mend the fence that has been broken too long. Say the thing you have been meaning to say. The animals were never sent to scare us into the shadows. They were sent to call us back out into our own lives, more awake than we were the day before. We live so fast now. We keep our eyes on little glowing rectangles, and we walk right past the crow on the wire and the deer at the edge of the field and the owl waiting patient on the post. The old ones would grieve that, I think. Not because we stopped believing the old stories, but because we stopped looking up at all. The messengers are still coming. They have never once stopped coming. We are simply too busy to notice, and being too busy to notice is its own kind of blindness, maybe the saddest kind. So here is what I would ask of you tonight, from my fire to yours. This week, look up. When a bird crosses your path, do not just walk on by. Stop. Give it a breath of your attention. You do not have to believe every old story to let a wild thing remind you that you are alive and that your time is precious and that the people you love are not promised to you forever. That much is true whether the owl calls your name or not. Tell me down in the comments. Has an animal ever come to you at a moment you could not explain, and did you understand later what it was trying to say? I read every one of these, and I will sit with yours. Walk gently. Keep your eyes open and your heart open wider. And the next time a messenger comes and looks at you, slow and steady, the way that owl looked at the man on his own fence post, do not be afraid. Just say thank you. Say, I hear you, and go and live like you mean it. Until next time, my friend, stay warm by the fire, and I will see you when the light comes back around.